Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it's my pleasure to highlight my creative journey and extract the various things that I'm learning along the way, as well as highlight the various tactics that I'm applying as I come up against certain obstacles or whatever the case may be, right? And if nothing else, just to kind of give you an insight into my process and hopefully inspire you, because we might not be doing quite the same thing, but overall, whenever I listen to somebody else's process and their journey, I certainly get inspired, from them. And so that is my hope with this. Now, I don't know if you want to call it like the elephant in the room or just like the thing that we're all dealing with is obviously coronavirus. And in particular, I would imagine that all of us are quarantined and we're staying at home and so forth. And, there's various reactions that you can have to that. And I certainly do, at times. It's one of those things where, it could be a good day, it could be a bad day, or, it can certainly shift within just a couple of hours, if nothing else, and what I find is that mainly depends on the news that I'm seeing, right? Or the various kind of things happening. And so, that can be tough and things like that, but I try to mainly focus on what I can control and what I can't. And so for me, what I can control is myself, the things that I do, various things of that nature. And obviously, I look at myself and I understand that I'm very blessed to be in the position that I am. And so, I try to find ways to utilize my blessings and, help others. And this, in a way, you can view it as one of the ways that I hopefully am helping and using my blessings to help other people. Other ways, I interact with the various people in my life via text or phone calls and things like that. Just, if nothing else, just to check in. And one of the things I was finding was that, there's a lot of people in my life that I actually do care about, perhaps some people that I haven't seen in a number of years. And so what I decided to do was to kind of, even though I decided to send a mass email. And even though it was a mass email, I tried to write it as sincerely as I could and acknowledging that it was a mass email, but it didn't diminish my sincerity. And what I said was in lieu of time, let me use this as a fire hose to just kind of ignite some conversations and, reconnect with essentially the people that I care about. And so I put that out there and have been getting a good response. And, it seems like it's brightened some people that have responded already, it's brightened their day and so forth to know that they're on my mind. And, I don't pretend to feel all of a sudden that all their worries and things like that have gone away. But sometimes it is just a small act like that you can do for somebody to let them know, if you are thinking about them, hey, I'm thinking about you, hope all is well type of deal, that, has the ability to brighten their day. And I think we often discredit that power from ourselves when in fact we should acknowledge it and utilize it. So that's one way that I've been kind of going about certain things. The other way, my friends and I, my close circle of friends, we communicate via text and, we've done the Zoom meetings before and things like that. But, there was an aspect that we missed and it just kind of, not that it was the same necessarily, but we just wanted kind of, I guess, like an activity, right? Just something a little bit beyond just the Zoom meeting. And so, I forget which one of us discovered the House Party app, but someone discovered it. We all sort of downloaded it, and that's been a fun thing. Essentially, it's it's almost like a Zoom, but it's got games built in. So whether Pictionary, trivia, version of Cards Against Humanity, or Heads Up, you can play this with any number of friends. And the nice part is, anytime you kind of check into the app, you can see a good number of friends there and kind of get a game going. So it's kind of been fun that way to have that going, and it's just, I don't know, if nothing else, it kind of stimulates your mind a little bit more, and allows you to have fun rather than just being hey, how's your week going? How are you dealing with Corona? You just focus on trivia or drawing, and people are laughing and things like that. So it's a nice little respite, if nothing else. And it's an app, so it's available for Android, iOS, doesn't matter. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. As far as the creative stuff, the things that I've been working on is mainly the trailer for my feature film. So there was a big, I kind of obviously kind of now with, coronavirus, there's a big pause in terms of doing anything with the movie until kind of life resumes to somewhat of a normal circumstance, or whatever you want to call it, for lack of a better term. But that doesn't prevent me from being able to move forward. And, and I know I've talked about the trailer itself, but, last week what I did was I really revisited the movie and cut out select pieces, whether visually or, sound bites that I liked. And that amounted to about 14 minutes out of like a 90-minute movie. And I started playing with those pieces to create a trailer. And because there are essentially 3 different storylines that interconnect, the way I started approaching it was, well, let me introduce one storyline and kind of pose like, let me pose a question and then move on to another character and pose that question of kind of what they might be going through, and then kind of, leave it a mystery, and then the third character, and then kind of show images and sound bites and things like that. And I overall, it was a good stepping stone. Like I thought, like it was finally a version. It was like version 13, and it was a version that I knew it wasn't complete, but I knew I was finally kind of in the right direction of things. And I actually had a big breakthrough this weekend, so I blasted it out to various people that I knew, that I trust, and I actually, for the first time, opened up towards people that haven't seen the movie, that weren't involved with the project, because I needed sort of fresh eyes, right? That's been a big part. When you're editing a trailer, for me, because I've worked on, I've written the movie, I've filmed the movie, I directed the movie, I edited the movie, like I've been involved so deeply throughout the process that now cutting a trailer, it's hard to separate what's vital information and, what information you don't want to give away, but you also need to give away. It's a fine balancing act. And so I have to say and applaud, in particular, my friend Dimitri Panos, who is a co-host of mine, formerly of Anatomy of a Movie. And, he's someone who who has worked in distribution of movies. And so not only do I like his actual take just from the creative standpoint, but he also is someone who is actually truly knowledgeable in this area. And he actually provided me a really brilliant breakthrough for this process, and I'm really excited. I haven't yet gotten to apply those notes, but essentially, there's a character who essentially, witnesses things, and she views things from her perspective, and the inner crossing of these various characters, she's kind of a witness to. And so it was like, well, why not let her be the main kind of through line for the trailer? Now, the reason why I didn't think of that initially was, yes, I always knew that she is kind of the narrator in the movie itself, but just the way the storylines went and things like that, it without spoiling too much, the storylines kind of shift in different ways, and so in that sense, it just wasn't as obvious as one might expect. Now, in hindsight, it's like, well, no, duh. But it's interesting kind of in that process when you're in the midst of it, sometimes like you can't separate the forest from the trees type of deal. And now kind of having his insight and having worked through it, now it's like, no, duh. And I'm excited to really get into it. And, I don't know if it fully unlocks the whole thing, but it certainly opens at least a door, if you will. So I'm really kind of excited for that. The other sort of exciting news regarding the movie is the fact that finally the sound design is resumed. So, I have a person that I like, that can really elevate the sound mix and the sound design to the next level. But the problem was that, he had a health issue, and it wasn't COVID-19, thankfully, but nonetheless, it was something that he had to deal with, and so he had to take a couple of weeks off, and he felt really bad about that. But I right when this happened, I told him, like, listen, right now everything's at a standstill anyway. Like, just take your time. Your health matters most, and the project's going to be here when you return. So I got the news Sunday morning, essentially, that all is well again with him, and he's back to normal life, and he's excited to tackle this project. So as of Monday, meaning today, he is back on the project. So I think it should take about 10 days. Who knows, it might take a little bit more, but in about 10 days, the movie will have a complete sound design and mix, which in essence means that the movie will be complete, because that's the last sort of piece of the puzzle. So I'm excited for that, because then, I essentially get to check off that the movie is fully complete and, off my plate. And in that sense, I can also work on the trailer a lot more, in the sense, like, right now, the audio is very rough because the movie's audio is not complete. It means that the trailer's audio is not complete. So, and I can't have clean audio for the trailer unless the movie's done, because I'm pulling it, like when you edit a trailer, you're pulling directly from the movie, right? So that's going to be exciting. So I'm very thankful, grateful that, Edgar is back to full health, and that, in the grand scheme of things, nothing was lost, and he's excited as always. And I know the talent he has, and what he's going to be able to bring to this project. So it's going to, every time when you color correct, when you add, the final score to something, when you do the sound mix, it always takes up the level of your product always up a notch. And so I'm really, really excited and looking forward to that. Speaking of, completing the movie, it's obviously a very interesting time for artists in general. But, I think one of the things that I spoke with one of my friends, Keaton Marquis, and, she's an actress among other things. And, we were talking, and she really encouraged me to submit the film to various film festivals. And, I haven't yet, but because, for me, if I was going to do that, I wanted to do it once the movie was complete, which I know, I've talked about in the past about submitting it to the Cannes Film Festival in terms of a working version, because it certainly wasn't the finalized version. And I'll talk about the Cannes Film Festival in a moment, but I think this is a good opportunity once I have the completed project to submit it to various film festivals. Now, I'm doing this under the full knowledge that any of these film festivals at any moment could be canceled. But, I'm going to take that shot and, and just try, right? I still want to put my best foot forward with this movie, and film festivals is one of the ways a filmmaker can do that. So I'm going to really try to do that. And if for whatever reason, if the film, I'm already kind of assuming that the film gets accepted, point blank, it might not be, right? So I have to be okay with that, and I am. Two, if I'm lucky enough that it does get accepted to, a festival or various festivals, those festivals might not happen this year, and it just kind of is what it is. So I have to be prepared for that outcome as well. But nonetheless, it's one of those things, like, you do everything in your ability that you can, and you kind of let the chips fall where they may. So it's almost like it's a notion of not having any regrets. I won't. It's kind of like with the Cannes Film Festival. I don't know if I'll ever have gotten accepted into the Cannes Film Festival unless I apply, right? And certainly with the Cannes Film Festival, it's a weird circumstance. As of today, I saw reports that they're partnering with YouTube along with other film festivals to do a digital version of it. Now, I haven't like received official notification from the organizers themselves. They have yet to select the movies that will be participating in this sort of format. This would be going on towards like the pretty much the end of May going into early June. And it's something that obviously I would love for my movie to be screened in a movie theater. Certainly that is kind of like the historic version of Cannes. That's what they fight for. But, I also understand like this is a weird time and things like that. And for me as a filmmaker, like at the end of the day, I want my movie to be seen. And yeah, I would hope that like, again, assuming that let's say like all things are go, that my movie's accepted and things like that, I wouldn't want people to see my movie on a cell phone on YouTube. But nonetheless, it's one of those things, well, I want my movie to be seen. And so, it's a situation that is, sort of outside the hands of a lot of people. So, you just kind of accept it for what it is. But, it's going to be interesting. I've been tracking kind of what the Cannes Film Festival has been doing. And, they were trying to, they tried delaying the film festival, and then they shortly after that realized like that just wasn't going to be an option. They moved it essentially from May to like they were thinking even like July, and that just doesn't seem to be in the cards. They kind of forfeited that, but they're still trying to move forward in some way. And so reports, as I said today, have said they're moving forward with like a partnership with YouTube. We'll see how that is. I am curious to know, like they didn't say when they would announce the participants of this, so I'm hoping to kind of hear really from the Cannes Film Festival. It's one of those things like, in the grand scheme of things, like there's so much going on, but right now it's like the Schrodinger's cat, like, am I in the film festival? Am I not? And I don't know until I get the official word. And not that that's creating anxiety, but yeah, I'm not going to lie and say that I wouldn't love to know if I did or did not. It certainly doesn't preclude me, as I said, that I will continue, once the sound mix is done, to apply to other film festivals. I imagine that if the YouTube version of the Cannes Film Festival is towards the end of May, that I would hear relatively soon, within the next 2 weeks. That's pure conjecture on my part, but I think that's relatively feasible, which would kind of align pretty well because, as I said, the sound mix is going to take about 10 days, so let's just estimate 2 weeks. So it would be good to know kind of then, it's kind of, I feel like things are aligning where, the sound mix for the movie is going to be done. I'm going to find out yay or nay on the Cannes Film Festival, because that'll then inform me how to go about applying to other film festivals and so forth. So I think it's all kind of coming together. And to that point, like if you are a filmmaker, I'd be curious to know how you're handling this coronavirus situation, how you're approaching things. And, obviously there's different levels of filmmaking. My movie is very low budget. I mean, I made it for $5,000. Now, granted, I not to toot my own horn, I credit everyone involved, but for me, I think it looks like at least like $80, if not $100,000 movie, right? 80 to $100,000 movie. And even though I don't have name actors necessarily, they are actors who are, in my opinion, phenomenal. And so, I think, the point being that I'm curious to know like how you're going about treating this, and especially if you were kind of in that boat of low indie budget filmmaking, how are you sort of dealing with this, right? Because it's already hard enough to make a movie, let alone get it out there, just, pre-2020 circumstances. But now it's like, the whole, everything's just kind of been flipped upside down, and you can't make heads or tails of anything really. And again, it's not to like, this is in lieu of like, there's so many bigger problems in the world, but that doesn't mean this isn't a problem for a lot of people's livelihood. I'm lucky enough that it's not my livelihood, it's a passion of mine. But still, nonetheless, I would love to kind of if you're a filmmaker out there, kind of chat with you. So comment down below or hit me up on social media at Phil Svitek. Be very curious. The other thing that I've been working on is research for my next film, right? I'm trying to keep the ball going, and mainly I've been outlining, and I heard kind of a great podcast about productivity when it comes to writing, because too often, in a sense, we attribute writing as this thing, and I'm looking up the podcast name because I don't want to just get it wrong. But the idea being that that too often we think writing is strictly the act of actual writing, right? Where you write words on a page. And so on the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast, there's episode 505 called Productive Tasks You Can Still Do Even When You Don't Feel Like Writing. And the reason I bring this up is because, right now I'm in the outline phase. And, while quote unquote, I'm not getting as many words on the actual page in terms of the outline as I would hope to, that doesn't mean I'm not being productive, because I'm still doing research around various subjects. Like I'm studying quantum processing and quantum mechanics and virtual reality, because these are things that are a big part of the movie. I'm researching other things. And also just watching movies, in that same genre. I've talked about this before, but I am of the belief that, you need to kind of study other people's work out there, so that way you avoid the cliches. So, I always try to do that in this vein, so I know what not to copy. And in fact, there's a TV series on Hulu called Devs. It's made by Alexander Garland, who is the director of movies such as Ex Machina and Annihilation. And this was an 8-episode miniseries that he did. And when I say he did, he literally wrote and directed all 8 episodes. Like, this is a true, series. Like, it's an auteur series, if you want to call it that. And it's very intriguing. It's about determinism. Is determinism real? Is it not? And while I think it fails in its sort of execution, I'm still very glad that I did watch it, because it's the questions that it does bring up are very interesting to me, and I enjoy talking about them, and it's got my mind thinking. And it gave me an idea of what I want to make sure to avoid with my project, and what is worthwhile fertile ground that hasn't yet been fully explored, right? So that's kind of been very interesting in that way. And so even though I'm not quote unquote writing the outline, I'm still being productive in that way. Now, there's, you have to kind of walk a fine line, because, research is definitely a form that you can kind of justify it to yourself of oh, I'm doing research, and then all of a sudden you're doing research for the next 3 years type of deal. But, for me, I'm still moving forward with the outline. So you kind of have to gauge it for yourself of what's fully needed and what's just you just digging a little bit deeper. And the nice part for me, I kind of the theme of last week's episode was just keep moving forward. And really, that's even what last week was, whether it was with the trailer, whether it was with the outline. I did a version of the trailer where I had some notions and things like that and started putting it together. And, I got to the end of the day and it wasn't complete, and I knew it was garbage, but I was you know what, at least I kind of worked on it and tried out various things. And then the next day I went into it, and, it's almost like I gave myself a running start, and, all of a sudden things started really clicking. But I don't think they would have clicked had I not done, the prior day's worth of work. And same thing with the outline. Right now I'm at a stage where I just did a version, and while it's a little bit better than the past versions, it's certainly, there's, bullet points that I put in must write or must think of how these characters interact, because it feels like they must interact here. And I don't know what the hell they're saying, what the hell they're doing, but there's just an inherent thing of something has to happen here, but I don't know what it is right now. Let me just kind of skip over it. And, I'm excited to utilize that momentum now, along with the things that I'm researching now. I've got some good ideas to help flesh those out, and at least have a nugget. Once I kind of dive in deeper, now I can start to really expand that. So I'm excited for that. And then also, one of the things I never want to do is basically lie about, all the things that I'm doing. Even though I get a lot of joy from being productive and creative, I certainly take a step back and, especially right now, just allow for moments to veg out, if you want to call it as such. So I watched The Office, I watch other mindless TV series that perhaps I've seen before, but then I also, for me, I try to balance it out with things that are familiar, so that way I can kind of just shut my brain off and be okay. And then other things, stuff that I haven't yet seen, stuff that I might enjoy, like devs. Also, the other thing that I've gotten into is ESPN's The Last Dance. I really love a good documentary, and especially sports to me in that sort of presentational format of a documentary are just fantastic to watch. And so they've put out 4 episodes thus far. And it's just been fantastic to watch. I can't wait it's going to be a 10-episode series, so I'm really looking forward to the conclusion of this. I wish all episodes were out there, because it's just so fantastic to watch. And then the other series that came out, I kind of discovered it on Netflix, through its recommendation algorithm, was Explained. And it's a docu-series about various things explained. And in this season in particular, they're tackling this pandemic. And the series is narrated by J.K. Simmons, and I think they only have 1 episode out right now about COVID-19, but it's 26 minutes. I thought it was really, really honest. I thought it was sobering. I thought it didn't hold back any punches. It definitely clarified a lot of things, and it offered hope. So I think in a way, to me, it should be almost required viewing. And I'm sure someone can poke holes at it of they didn't include this and they didn't include that, and then at the end of the day, it's only 26 minutes, but I think it's a nice summation of kind of the various things, and you can certainly deep dive into other facts as well. So I think that that's a strength and testament of that series in particular, and I look forward to other episodes in it. The sort of last thing that I guess I'll touch on before I kind of wrap out is, it's exciting. So I in tandem with everything going on, I'm editing my first novel. And when I say I'm editing, I'm really just kind of sitting on the sidelines, looking at the various notes that my editor, Emily, we have a Google Doc, and she makes recommendations and suggestions. And so she's been working on that, and now she's on chapter 28 of 33. So it's exciting to see kind of her get to the final stages of the book, and then then once she's done, I'll be able to kind of take the next step. And obviously, I have to have my pass at it, because there's certain suggestions where she's you need to expand this, or you need to clarify this. So I'll have to kind of go back in, but I'm waiting until she's completely done with the book to be able to do that, because I want to talk to her on the whole of everything. And one of the goals of this pass was to lower significantly the word count. It was 97,000 words, and the good news is we've essentially chopped off 7,000 words. My ideal would have been 80,000 words, but as I told her, I'm not going to sacrifice anything just to kind of speed things up at this point. Maybe we can get to 88,000 or, something along those lines. And I think we can find that, but, and I think we're on the same page that we're not going to cut anything just for the sake of cutting if it doesn't make sense. If we can make it tight, let's make it tight. But, sometimes I think people can overcut sometimes. So, we'll see. Who knows? I might I might be completely changing my tune next time around. I might tell you like, oh, we actually found so much fluff that we did get it down to 80,000. But so far, that doesn't seem to be the case. Like it actually flows pretty well, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in the novel, and so anyway. As for goals for this week, I am continuing to work on the how-to book. It's essentially a making of how I made my first feature. And so what I've been doing is I've essentially been dictating, I've outlined what I want in terms of the chapters. And then what I'm doing is dictating chapter by chapter in a similar fashion like this, and then transcribing that and change, using that as like a rough draft of the book. And so far I've gotten, quote unquote, 4 chapters done. So I'm going to continue moving forward in that vein. And so that's a goal of mine. Continue to polish the trailer. Luckily, time is on my side in this regard. So, I can't say exactly when it'll be fully done, but I want to have it be as perfect as it can be. And part of how you make it, you get to that conclusion is it goes back to something that I learned a while ago, where someone presents you with a version of something and you look at it and it's like, okay, this is as good as it can be. And it's like, okay, well, prove it, right? And so you put your best foot forward with other versions, and what you start to learn is like, yeah, and in fact was always the best version, or like, oh no, this is actually a better version. So I'm excited to kind of explore that with the trailer and just test out a couple different versions and really look at it from all angles and really start to see what is the best version. And essentially I'm kind of doing that with the outline for what ideally would be my second feature film as well. So that's what's going on in my life. That's how I'm viewing things. Thank you for taking the time to join me, hear me talk about these various things. I hope it has been helpful in one way, shape, or form. Inspiring if nothing else. If you have any questions or want to talk about something in greater detail, I would be happy to do so. Comment down below, or hit me up on social media @Svitek, and I hope to see you next time.